I'm genuinely worried for the country because I'm seeing something that even in 1968, when the country was on fire and there were riots in the street and people were being killed, and it was a very divided time, there was a sense in which there was still free speech. There was still a sense that people need to be heard. And there was also an understanding that the basic institutions of our government, flawed as they were still functioning. But what I'm seeing now is that we clearly know, even though it's been overshadowed by the whole issue of George Floyd, and I understand that, but we now know that at the highest levels of law enforcement and intelligence in the United States government, there was an attempt to prevent the election of President Trump and then to stage what was nothing less than a coup d'etat against him after he took office, using all of the powers of government that should be used to protect America and Americans to go after an elected president and all those around him. That's frightening. Then I look at what's happening to the left. They think we ought to defund the police. Yeah. This is the nuttiest idea I've heard in my lifetime. And it even has some people on the left trying to run from it. But they can't. What we are now seeing is an all-out assault against every American value that we hold dear. And I think people need to understand that there is going to be an election this year, and it's not about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It's about whether you believe in a collectivist society and statism, or if you believe in individual liberty and personal freedom. Do you believe that we ought to have law and order, or should we have anarchy? Should we clean up our cops, or should we not have any cops and let the streets be run by looters, rioters, thugs, and common criminals? I mean, these are fundamental questions that are going to be answered in November when we go to the polls. And I could go on, but I understand we've got to keep moving. So I'll leave it at that for the time being.
But that's fabulous in its clarity, and that's why America loves you so much. It's a question of statism versus liberty, or you said law and order versus anarchy. That's exactly right. In 145 days, people will get to make that choice. Let me go back to what you said originally, and I hate conspiracy theories. They're entertaining and fun, but there's a reason they're called theories. However, you mentioned two specific different things. You talked about the anarchy of the last 16 days, the riots, the murders, and then you talked about, prior to that, the biggest political scandal in American history, and that's the use of our intelligence services, federal law enforcement to undermine a presidential campaign and then to try and undermine a newly elected administration. Is there any connection between those two things, or is it just a function of that famous phrase from Senator Clyburn, from Rahm Emanuel, even from Nancy Pelosi herself, that you never let a good crisis go to waste? Or is it something deeper than that, Governor Huckabee?
It would be easy for me to subscribe to the conspiracy theory that this is all a carefully planned game that they have constructed. But when I look at these people, I'll be honest with you, I don't think they're smart enough to carry out something that is so deep and involved. But I do believe that our battle, and this is going to kind of put me out there, and some people will maybe say I'm crazy, but I think our battle is not really a political battle. It's a spiritual battle. Yes. And this is evil versus good. This is dark versus light. This is a whole deeper issue. And it's not just about intelligence agencies and law enforcement officials and Democrats and Republicans. It's about whether or not we're going to be true to our founding, a nation under God, or if we're going to be a completely secular nation that every person is his or her own God. That's where this is really rooted. And so is there a conspiracy? Maybe not an earthly one, but I do believe that among the world and the kingdom of darkness, there is most definitely orchestration going on.
There is truly something dark, at least in the hearts of those who affected the violence of the last 16 days. You see him on Fox News. He's a contributor. He has his own show Saturday evenings on TBN. Follow him right now, Gov Mike Huckabee on Twitter. In the last couple of minutes we have with you, and he's only got 1.6 million followers. So show the man some love right now, please. Governor Huckabee, one of the issues that seems to recur for us here on America First with our guests is that now is the time for courage and not the time to hide our voices. What is your message to those out there who've seen the firing, seen the scapegoating, seen the doxing online? What is your message to those who love this country but who are perhaps more afraid than they've ever been in their lives?
Good reason to be afraid, but I'm thinking about those young men, younger than my own sons by a lot, who exactly 76 years ago, last Saturday, stormed the beaches of Normandy. And by doing so, they kept the world free and kept America alive. This wonderful, incredible American experiment in government. And throughout our history, we've had people who no doubt were afraid and would rather have just sat it out, but they didn't. They rose to the occasion. And if we owe them anything, and I think we owe them everything, then it is incumbent upon us to not sit this out. We have to be willing to, as you said at the beginning, get in the trench. And it's not going to be pleasant, comfortable, and we'll often, and many of us will, pay a high price for doing so. But if we don't, then the foreboding world ahead is not one you want to turn over to your kids and grandkids.
Perspective, as always. We owe it to that generation. Just 76 years ago, which in historic terms is a blink of an eye, they risked everything for Western civilization, for our Judeo-Christian heritage. Do we have what it takes to stand up to far less dangerous foes today? Let's show the world that we do. Follow him right now, Gov Mike Huckabee on Twitter. Check out his show every Saturday on TBN and, of course, on Fox every single day.
We say, and I ask you to say with us, lift up your voices in this great meeting in the heart of England. Send to all the world a message. England lives and marches on.